And of course, even 3 years on, sometimes we have those audio glitches. Sorry about that, Jeannie. Um, those of you on Facebook probably know who I am. So, what I was saying was 5 years ago, according to my Facebook feed, I was at COPD 9 USA in Chicago. Was able to bring the family with me, which was really cool. Kids got to see me present a poster all about our work on Navigator. Um, and so, it's gotten me to thinking, the whole coronavirus pandemic has been an unusual situation to say the least. And I'm trying to think how I want to put this. Um, it's really caused, I think, a lot of people to kind of take stock about what they want out of life, what they want, what's important, all that kind of stuff. I know, as cheesy as it may sound, I think that's important to have that from time to time, to have that kind of reflection period and all that. And one of the things that I have really liked the most, or enjoyed the most, really looked forward to, been honored by, all that kind of stuff, is these daily little talks, these daily chat sessions, as glitchy as they can be sometimes. I really appreciate the opportunity to connect with a lot of folks in the community, the COPD community. I've really enjoyed where we've been going with our Zoom web conferences. We've been doing a lot of really cool stuff with there. We're going to have another one tonight where we're basically going to play some what we call Jackbox.tv games. We're going to have some fun with that, hopefully, because what I wanted to do 6 years ago with the discussion group, with the COPD Navigator group, was to have a new place where people could come together, get fairly objective, relatively unbiased, I think. I like to think, information about breathing problems. Vast majority of which are COPD, but we've got some people with asthma and both sometimes. A lot of the concepts, of course, work out the same. Some of the treatments are different, that sort of thing. Welcome into Brian Simpson, our lead patron right now on Patreon, getting his mention at the beginning of the program. Thanks for joining in on YouTube, Brian. Appreciate that. Also trying something new today. I'm going to be looking down from time to time. Live on Reddit. Trying to get the message out to as many channels, as many different ways to go as possibly can. So on the distant socializing subreddit. So hello to the Reddit world. Appreciate you stopping by. But in any event, so that was 5 years ago. And of course, we've grown since then. We've started doing these videos, started branching out in a variety of different ways. And now we're kind of at this crossroads again, where things are opening up, for better or for worse. But I don't know that we should really be looking at going back to normal, what we have previously considered normal, because in my day job right now, we've been looking at, and this is a discussion that's been raging across the country, about pulmonary function testing, for example. We'll start with that. Of course, a staple of COPD diagnosis, a staple of a lot of respiratory stuff, but a very easy way to communicate a respiratory virus or other respiratory diseases. You're taking that breath in, you're blowing out, you're coughing, you're doing all these things that can contaminate you, anybody with you, the test technician, the equipment, all these things. So we're trying to figure out a way how to do that stuff safely. We're trying to figure out what visits should look like so they can be safe. A lot of practices have done a lot of these virtual visits. And while certain things can't be done, like spirometry can't really be done virtually, you can't really do that at home, you potentially can do a lot of other stuff virtually. So the question then becomes, how do we take the lessons that we've learned from COPD Navigator and from what we've done in person in the clinic and all that sort of thing? How do we apply that stuff to the new normal? What's that going to look like going forward? How do we adapt what we've learned for this crisis situation? How do we identify the things that probably should go forward? I mean, I know I'm preaching largely to the choir here, but we've got folks with COPD, with cystic fibrosis, with any number of other pulmonary diseases, pulmonary hypertension, pulmonary fibrosis, all kinds of stuff. We know that many of the barriers that people face in doing things like pulmonary rehab, I mean, we've talked about a lot of this stuff previously. We know a lot of the problems that people face are related to transportation and logistics and simply getting out to the provider's office. We know that a lot of folks with respiratory stuff are at higher risk for any contagious disease, coronavirus or not. Elephant in the room or not, I should say. I don't want to get, not monetized anyway, so, but I don't want to get blocked on YouTube or anything like that. So how do we apply these lessons going forward? I got to thinking about that earlier. What if we were able to design some kind of program where you could actually have like a COPD coach, where you could check in once a month, or once every 3 months, or whatever it is, and get some really personalized instruction about, and again, not necessarily medical advice, because we don't really want to do medical advice, but what if we could tell you how to talk with your provider better? What if we could partner with your provider and say, hey, we've done some of these evaluations, this is what we would recommend, considering, years of experience and all that stuff. What if we had some kind of concierge COPD coach, COPD concierge, or whatever label we'd want to put on it? Of course, I'm somewhat partial to the cheesy COPD dude, but, we can be flexible. It is what it is. How would that look? Would that work? Is that would that be of benefit to anybody? Is it worth pursuing? I think it's worth pursuing for a couple of different things. First of all, it would probably allow me a better chance to do some of this stuff. And hello, Lisa, checking in on the Facebook feed. Appreciate you stopping by. Is that something that we could figure out how to do? We've got a lot of people who are still in the workforce with COPD, a lot of people who don't know that they have COPD. I love to do this stuff for everybody. I'm able to do it in primary care right now, but there are a lot of folks who don't get access to that sort of thing. When I was doing the poster for COPD 9 USA, after a year of Navigator, so many people said, and I'm fortunate enough that people continue to say, there's so much I've learned from here that I'd never heard before from my doctor, because, again, as a clinician, I throw ourselves right under the bus with that all the time. We do a terrible job at teaching about COPD. It's not because nobody wants to. Nobody wants to set out and be a bad doctor or a bad physician assistant or a bad nurse practitioner or a bad respiratory therapist. We just don't really have the mechanisms right now. The most places you get your instruction are bad places to teach. That your primary care provider is trying to shoehorn in half a dozen different things into a 15-minute visit and maybe not doing any of them particularly well. Your pulmonologist, if you are able to see one, or if you're in a rural area, maybe you have to drive 200 miles and pack up 3 oxygen tanks or what have you, or 5 batteries to get to your pulmonologist's office. What if we could use all of this technology and bring it to the masses with a smartphone? Lynn and Brian think that could work pretty well. Sounds interesting, Lynn says. Brian says he thinks it could work. So how would we do that? Is that, it's difficult to get Medicare reimbursement for a lot of this stuff. We're working on fixing that. We're working on trying to do a better job with getting stuff paid for that actually works and not just paying for it because it was done. But I wonder how, I mean, is that a service that is worth paying for? Is it something that we need to partner with some of the private insurances with to demonstrate value, or a Medicare Advantage? Just fascinating. I mean, I would be really curious to hear more thoughts about how we could make that work, because I have this vision. In a perfect world, I would start tomorrow and just offer, as sign up today, and I will be your COPD coach. I won't give you medical advice. I can't write prescriptions. I can't do any of that stuff, but I can do the evaluations that I do. I can do the smoking cessation, the vaping cessation. I can do screening tools, and then give you a list of stuff that you say, okay, now you take this list, and in the 2 minutes that your PCP has dedicated to your lung health, because that's all the time they have, again, not because they're bad people or anything like that. That's just all the time they have. This is what you need to ask. Ask about a sleep study. Ask about pulmonary rehabilitation. Ask about, ask about a new spirometry test. Maybe your spirometry hasn't necessarily been validated, or ask if you really need it. I know Brian has been very open. He lives with pretty advanced airway obstruction. He doesn't really care about the number anymore. I wonder why the signal's getting so choppy there. I'm going to hydrate for a second here. So how do we make that work? How do we convince the masses that that's an ongoing thing? Or do we do the sort of like the lift pulmonary rehab angle, or the home rehab, like some of the tele-rehab things where you buy a subscription or something like that? Is that worth enough for that? Those are the questions that really need to be answered, I think, because obviously what we've been doing hasn't worked. COPD is still way up there as a leading cause of mortality and disability and all these things. In Michigan, it's number 3 nationwide, number 4 generally, although number 3 is like accidents. They lump all the accidents and drug overdoses and trauma and all that stuff in together. Lift could be a good approach. Physicians, RTs, nurses need to be able to spend more time really getting to know their patients. Wholeheartedly agree. We need more interprofessional cooperation, better care coordination, I guess you'd say. So, that's kind of been on my mind today. I spent probably the most time in the office today than I've spent since March. I've been in here and there, seeing a patient here and there, but I was in for pretty much a full day today. To really do a full history, Jeannie says, yeah, I agree that they need to do a full history, but we've got to go beyond the history too, right? I mean, there are people that I see monthly that I spend a solid half hour with, just going over this stuff, making sure that you're doing your inhaler properly, making sure that, that's been another question. I work with a couple of different advisory boards for different companies in the industry. And a lot of them have said, well, we want to be able to do, we've got, on the one side, we want to do telehealth, but on the other side, we've got all of our docs and stuff are saying, well, you can't really do pulmonary stuff via telehealth. And I say I question that, because, one of the things is, well, how do you check inhaler technique? And it's like, well, talk to your client, your customer, your patient, and the person you're taking care of, and say, okay, we're going to have a meeting. We're going to have an appointment tomorrow with your webcam and all that stuff. Wait to do your inhaler until we have our appointment, and because I want to be able to watch you do it, and then show you how to fix it if there are any issues. Or I get these. This is a placebo meter dose inhaler. Um, that's like $7. I mean, maybe that's part of the kit is, you subscribe and your initial starter kit is you get a placebo inhaler and something else for, and then do your demonstration on there. Now you run the risk there of, getting the confusion between the two inhalers, but, I don't know. The extra time with the RT and cardiac home nurse made a huge difference in how I manage your health. Yeah, I mean, Jeannie has also been very upfront with, um, you know, diagnosis was kind of askew for a while, and then a lot of her issue ended up being with heart issues, heart problems, and then once those got fixed, a lot of the breathing got better. And there are a lot of folks out there exactly in the same boat. What looks like a heart problem ends up being a lung problem. What looks like a lung problem ends up being a heart problem. It's really hard to tell the difference sometimes because sometimes we look at things like, well, you're short of breath, or well, you cough, or well, all that, and there's 8,000 different things that can look like those issues. And that's why we need stuff like spirometry and the other pulmonary function testing and symptom scoring and things like that. James joining in from Oregon. Actually got to hype James up a little bit. I left my mask in the car, but now that we're back to getting back into the clinics and stuff, our clinic is requiring a fabric mask for most interactions. And I'm using the Star Trek mask that James sent. And a couple of people asked me where I got it today. So I told them a buddy of mine from Oregon. So they were jealous. So thank you again, James. We're just talking today about how we can implement some of the things that we've learned, particularly over the last few months with these daily house calls, into better care in the future. Because, again, the other thing is, this is the other thing that really goes overlooked, including by me a lot of the times. I mean, I was talking about how, I'm doing Reddit right now. We have this idea of distant socializing. That's what they actually call, on Facebook, they're groups. On Reddit, they're called subreddits. We have, social from a distance. For those of you watching on Facebook and YouTube, that's one of our big hashtags, has been since the dawn of all this stuff. It's not just about education either. One of the things that I have really, really been grateful for in Navigator is that, it has really been a community. Rachel Smith came up with calling us Navigator Nation. She talks about the navigators. It's like part of being in a community. And I know that there are a lot of other groups on Facebook that feel very similar to that. You're in the club, you belong, you're on the same team. And I know there's a lot of folks that go to pulmonary rehab for exactly that same reason. They don't want to be alone. They want to be part of something bigger, whether, you call it a team or a group or something like that. That's a big deal, and rightly so. It should be a big deal. And I want, again, I want to be able to bring that sense of community and that sense of togetherness, so it's not just the education part of it. It's, messing around with Emma doing the fingernails. It's Fitness Friday coming up tomorrow. It's harmonicas. We've got harmonicas. I guess I better get that event back up, but we'll do harmonicas again on Monday. We'll see what the next I'd like to do the support group thing. We'll see how game night goes. And I don't know about that, but again, I want to do those things. The heavy lift is trying to keep down the day job and then doing all that stuff when you get home. So that's what, at the end of the day, that's what I want to really figure out is how can I keep doing all of these things that people seem to respond to. I shouldn't assume. I'm not that arrogant yet. Not that full of myself, hopefully. But how do we bring all of these things, these services and these value adds and all that stuff to the greater population? We've got to start, as I mentioned, Brian is our leading supporter on Patreon right now. That in and of itself is a monthly subscription service that supports a lot of people on YouTube and a lot of creator types. So, maybe it's as simple as that. Maybe it's just, I don't want it. I don't at all want to turn everything into a fully subscription model, because I know that there are people that would immediately lock out, and that's not fair. So then how do we draw the line between the free content and the value, the paid for content? I never really thought I would be in this kind of situation. I almost feel like I work for a network or something like that, or or Netflix or something like that. How do you describe what's on tier 1, what's on tier 2? Weird. It's a weird thing. So if you've got any creator friends out there that have advice, be willing to consult with that too. Hydration break again. Really important to stay hydrated right now. I was actually just talking to one of my actual patients today who is struggling a bit with the warmer and more humid temperatures. And boy, has it been humid here in Michigan. We got a little bit of a break. We had some thunderstorms night before last. That kind of broke through the humidity, but it was toasty again today. Earlier in the week, definitely humid. I think, was it Monday? It was hot and muggy and bad day all around, honestly. Social unrest and everything else, which, again, rightly so. So let's see what got a big comment here from James. All right, so scroll back a little bit here. Our pulmonary rehab program is closed for the next 2 months as well, sadly. I encourage everyone to call for home exercise examples and keep going as much as possible. Y'all can do it. Lean on peeps like Mike and I. We're here to help you. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why I do Fitness Friday. As usual, wait until the last minute, try and figure out what we're going to do tomorrow, but we'll do something fun. I'd love to try to get outside again. That worked well from the backyard, not so well from the front yard when we were playing Foursquare last week. Might end up being video games or a dance off or something like that again. We'll see what happens. But yeah, and in addition to that, I've been working to try to put together, there are a lot of pulmonary rehab exercise videos on YouTube. I've tried to put together on our YouTube channel. Let me see if I can get a link to that. I'll have to go over here. See if I can get a link to that and I'll chat while I'm trying to do that. There are a lot of resources out there for home pulmonary rehab. But again, unless, a lot of them are simply hard to find, or, again, we did, like, one of the things we did a couple weeks ago, or was it last week? I think I did one I guess right here. No, last week was Foursquare. That's right. A couple weeks ago, did where's my playlists? There we go. A couple weeks ago, we did like chair yoga and chair tai chi and stuff like that. Oh, and then 2 weeks ago, that was what we did in the backyard with some more tai chi stuff. That stuff works great. Hit that here. Here's the link to the playlist on YouTube. Again, on YouTube, this has some good. These are a couple of different things that I've done. Yep, and Noah, thank you for checking in. Noah's got his pulmonary wellness boot camp, which has gotten rave reviews many a time. I know a lot of people have gotten a lot of benefit out of that. That's kind of the issue, is we got to try to pull, these disparate resources together, not necessarily the programs like Lyft and boot camp and stuff like that. But, if you're on YouTube and you're looking around, you might see something that is Tai Chi, or you might enjoy that, but you might not necessarily think of that right away as something that might be good, even though, we cover all the time. We cover mindfulness and breathing techniques and all that stuff, which is, a huge part of Tai Chi and yoga and meditation. But because people aren't aware of that, they don't necessarily think of that for breathing problems, or particularly yoga, they think, well, I got to get down on the floor and do all kinds of weird stuff with my back and all that kind of stuff. But there's chair yoga and stuff like that. People just don't necessarily realize a lot of it. And again, James is mentioning the social part is hard because people like that. When you go to pulmonary rehab, it goes back to the old thing about, I never tell people I know how you feel, because I don't. I can give the resources, I can explain why sometimes you feel like you feel, or I can empathize with that. But I don't know. And so to a certain degree, it's a little bit empty. But when you get somebody else who's been on the path, and you can kind of commiserate with each other, and again, it goes back to being on the team. A lot of folks like to be they really get close to a lot of their pulmonary rehab peeps, because they're all on the same team, and they can look at each other, they get to know each other, and they look at each other, and it's like, yeah, this sucks, and yeah, it sure does, and that person knows exactly what you're talking about. Jeannie says, Navigator has created a unique community, tuning in more and more. I need the company with this pandemic. Can't meet with my physical support group. Navigator and Noah's group, Ultimate Pulmonary Wellness, have filled the gap for me. Yeah. And see, that's the thing. Early on in the pandemic, I was reading a lot, and there were a lot of talks about how, if these things are acceptable now, if they're appropriate now, why won't they be after? I was reading an article just today. I never thought I would, not to get too political or anything, but I didn't really think I would ever agree with much coming out of National Review. But it was talking about how state by state licensure laws, were kind of demonstrating that maybe that's not the best way to go, because they hamper things like telehealth. They hamper things like, moving from state to state. It's been an evolution on my part. I've got a lot of folks who, a lot of RTs are like, well, why can't we have, licensure reciprocity like we do, like many nurses do, and some physicians and all that. And I never really thought of it as much of a priority, but maybe it should be. Maybe we're seeing that now, especially with telehealth. We see that we now have the technology. I'm talking to you now from southwestern Michigan. I know I'm talking to at least one person from New York. I'm talking to somebody from Pennsylvania. I'm talking to somebody from Oregon. And I'm talking to, I can't ever remember where Brian lives. We have people on here from Wisconsin. We've had people from Australia and the United Kingdom. And now, while I'm not saying that we need to break not everybody is going to have, we don't have truly universal service or anything like that. Maybe it's time to reconsider a national certification or a national license. Maybe it's time to think about that stuff, just to facilitate I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm talking to all of you like I might be looking at you, and again, like tonight when we're doing our Zoom thing, or Monday when we did harmonicas. We've done in-person harmonicas programs, and we've done now also from Pennsylvania. We got Colorado checking in. We've had, I don't know if Joe Walsh is checking in like he usually does, but Georgia. I'm talking to all of you right now like I would be talking to the half dozen or so people in a support group, all sit like I've done before, live in Kalamazoo. Or our harmonicas group live in Kalamazoo, talking to all of you people around the world. I don't think I've gotten any comments on Reddit, but I've gotten some upvotes and things like that. So who knows where I'm talking to people on Reddit. All these people all around the country, as easy as I would be talking to somebody 10 feet away, at least 6 feet away, right, these days, but 10, 12 feet away. Especially if we start using more of the conference software. I know James, I kind of skipped over a little bit, but James mentioned tried starting an online Zoom exercise class as well. A couple weeks ago, I met with a gentleman, RT by the name of David Junga, I believe his name is, or Junga. who does pulmonary rehab through Zoom as well. They do, that's their session. It can be complicated. Lynn from Connecticut. So yeah, I mean, literally across the country. Sometimes we get, even on this show, even with the time difference and stuff, we've gotten people from the UK. They're about 4 hours ahead of us right now. So it's 8 o'clock, 2036 Greenwich Mean Time. So how do we adapt the services we provide as clinicians to take advantage of that? Because, again, going back to the beginning of why are things that are acceptable during the pandemic going to be acceptable later on? We have locked down a lot of our clinical facilities and locked down a lot of stuff for safety. And I almost air quoted that, but that's true. We locked it down for safety. Because we had to. Because our hand was forced. But maybe these are some things that we should have been doing all along. I was talking with, I can't remember which group it was, might have just been with the fam here. There are a lot of folks who just don't want to go out because it's hard. When you get short of breath walking to the end of the driveway, do you really want to be going across town to an office or to a support group or to harmonicas or to pulmonary rehab? If it's exercise, just getting up and going to the restroom, it's exercise. Why you're going to do the exercise on the way to get more exercise? A lot of people are reluctant to do that. Or, again, it's tough if you have the logistics of, well, this tank is going to last me so long at this liter flow, or I have to have so many batteries or be within so close of a AC outlet so I can charge up my concentrator. So why don't we use the same principles? Yeah, Brian says it's how many of us live. It's tough getting out many days. Yeah, absolutely. So we know that. And we still say it. We encourage people. Well, you got to fight through it. You got to fight through it. But again, that's really easy for us to say when we don't, when we're not short of breath just talking. So then what happens is, there are a lot of days where you don't want to power through it, which I completely understand. And so then you get isolated, and then you get lonely, and then you get depressed. I know it's been tough for Jeannie in particular. She's mentioned that grandkid, not being able to see grandkids or having to be real careful with grandkids. So can we bring the social aspects of it too? So why, we're doing all these things now because we have to. Why do we go back to not doing them because we don't have to? Maybe we go from doing them because we have to and switch it to doing it because we should. We should be doing these things. Yeah, we should be encouraging people to get out and get social and all that sort of thing. But if you can't, if it's just too much sometimes, why not provide an option to support that? And, then again, we get to the idea of how do we do that? How do we accomplish that? How do we make that happen? Because we know that we should be making that happen. Doing things because we should, doing things because they're the right thing to do, rather than because we have to, because it's a pandemic and we don't want to get people sick. We haven't had a good soapbox on House Call for a little while here, so I guess this is it. So, like I said, I would really like to hear more feedback. How do we make this happen? What should it look like? And again, going back to when I first started Navigator, when I first started my in-person clinic, I asked, because one of the things I talk about in Navigator a lot is I know what I think are priorities. I know what I think is wrong or needs improvement or what have you. but I'm not the population. I'm the clinician. I look at things from a very particular angle, from a very specific box. And that doesn't always align with what the actual problem is. Like I said, going back to the whole licensure thing, I didn't think it was a real priority, but maybe I was wrong. I need to know more. I want to know more information. So when I started my in-person clinic, I asked the question, what should it look like? If you were to go to a clinic, if you were able to design your own clinic, what would it look like? I see I'm struggling a little bit. I had this issue on Zoom the other day where the camera just kind of freezes for no obvious reason. See if we can get it back here. There we go. Don't know how long it's been frozen like that, but. So if you were to go to a clinic, what should it look like? I asked the great minds of COPD Navigator, what would you want to see? And I got a lot of great advice that I used up until the beginning of the pandemic, and a lot of it I might not be able to use anymore because it came down to we want it to be comfortable. We want it to be friendly. We don't want it to be sterile like an exam room. Well, now we're kind of stuck to probably going back to an exam room, at least for a little while, just because of, keeping it clean and safe and everything else. But that's what I want to hear. If I were to ask you, if you were able to design your own, I don't know if you want to call it like Netflix for COPD, or if you were able to design your own program, what would it look like? How much would be education? How much would be social? What kind of education? What kind of social? Because I really think that there's an opportunity to be had here. And I know I'm probably giving out all my secrets now, giving out my ideas, and maybe I'll read about it that somebody else has made this grand innovation, and I'm day late and a dollar short. But somebody will benefit from it. And again, at the end of the day, that's the important part. Also, we got about 20 minutes left here. About 5 minutes if you're watching on Reddit until the broadcast time expires. Hey, you got an actual follower on Reddit. Welcome. I don't have too many followers. Not super into the whole. I enjoy it now. I just haven't really optimized that yet. But there is a fairly active COPD community on Reddit, r/COPD. I'd like to discuss that more. I met a couple of really interesting people from there. So, what would that look like? And I don't expect the answers right now. I would love to hear your thoughts in an email, breathetv@copdnavigator.net. Would love to hear your thoughts. I mean, you can message me, you can Twitter at me at COPD Navigator, message me on Facebook, drop a comment in YouTube. I mean, you can send me comments, suggestions, lots of different ways. It's easy enough. You can always message me to get a new email, a better email, or whatever you're comfortable with. Can't text yet. I'm looking into that. That's kind of expensive. I thought about, well, maybe we can do one of those text codes where you text COPD to whatever, and sign up for a list. But looking to start an email list too. Not that anybody needs more email, but it is what it is. But yeah, I want to hear about that because I would love to be able to provide that service. This experience has given me the opportunity to discover some of the things that I really want out of life, that are really meaningful. And as I've said a couple of times now, as we're approaching the end of the daily shows, this has been really meaningful for me. It's been something to look forward to. As Jeannie said, Navigator and Ultimate Pulmonary have filled the gap for her being isolated and all that stuff. It's been something to look forward to. It's been an interesting challenge to come up with some kind of new activity every day. And I know we've done repeats and all that stuff. It's given me a chance to involve my kids more. And, we had, Emma and Tommy, Emma, Tommy, and Joey have all had their moments on here and seen what it's like to be able to interact. We obviously, we're a tech household, so we have our favorite YouTubers and all that stuff. And it's kind of given them an idea of what it might look like to be a YouTuber, an influencer, a content creator, all that kind of stuff. So it's been a good teaching experience. It's been a bonding experience. And I don't want to let that go, quite frankly. I know it's selfish and all that stuff, but I don't want to let that go. I want to come back to that as soon as possible. I've really enjoyed my work in the real world, but this has a lot of meaning. So a peek into the psyche of the COPD dude. All right, so I have probably talked long enough. Let's take a look and see if we've got any other COPD news for the day. And of course, still open for questions. Like I said, we've 15, 20 minutes left. Let's see what's on your mind. Well, right off the front page, not a lot going on with the news. Here is another. Let's see, what are we talking about here? Oh, that's that stem cell article again. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that. We can talk testing. I mean, we've got getting ready to say aloha to the Reddit folks. We got 1 minute to go there. But I would invite you to come on over to Facebook or YouTube. Just search for COPD Navigator and come join us there. So Elizabeth, welcome Elizabeth. Had to cancel our Better Breathers meetings, and our patients are really missing the human contact and interaction with people who care about them. I will be glad when we can go back. Yeah, that's the kind of vibe that I'm trying to do with the Zoom stuff. We had a really good talk this past Tuesday. Brian and Jeannie were there, and we had Joe. That was a fantastic interactions on there, and it was very similar to what we might see with a Better Breathers group. Hey, Joe, watching on your phone in the car, drive safely, man. Come on. Appreciate your dedication, but keep yourself safe, man. Come on. Elizabeth is a respiratory navigator too. Oh, okay. Welcome in. So, and that's kind of what, that would be another option. I kind of want to, I want to help people set up maybe their own Zoom stuff. I want to, like I said, we had a really cool, interaction on Tuesday that was very similar to what we would see in a Better Breathers group. We've had a couple of those in conjunction with, Lynn's asking for the link for tonight, so I'm going to grab that real quick. Thanks for keeping me on my toes there. Should have been doing that from the get-go. I want to bring that kind of, the Better Breathers philosophy to online because, I know that we've had a lot of folks come and go with Better Breathers because sometimes you're just having a bad day, but, and you can't make it out. Like I was saying before, you've got, sometimes it's just a bad day, or you're in the middle of the exacerbation, or you're still in the hospital and you miss your buddies or something like that. I mean, there's so many potentials for these things. Better Breathers groups are great. I'm a facilitator myself. I've gone through the training, but I think we can do, I don't want to say better. We can do more. We can do more. So while I'm waiting for the events, oh, here we go. Sometimes it loads fast. sometimes it loads slow. But we're just about to have the link. What we're going to be doing tonight, again, this is going to be kind of a trial and error thing. Here's the link. We'll copy link address, and we'll get it into the watch party. It's such a terrible link when it comes from Facebook. But it still works. Now remember, don't click on this until 7 o'clock Eastern time, or it won't work. Every time I paste one of these, somebody tries to hit it up like immediately, and I'm not over there yet. Did that go? Yeah, there we go. Okay. So we're going to do some games tonight. These are online games. All you need is a smart device, or you can just sit and watch. Kind of like, I don't necessarily want to say brain teasers or anything like that, but things like filling in a punchline or creating a new word. That's the one that's a favorite around the house here. We have this on one console. It'll give you a word, and then you have to come up with a definition for it, and then everybody votes on what's the funniest, and then everybody comes up with a synonym for it, and then it's just, like I said, a good time, just having some social stuff, maybe having a few laughs. Lots of comments here back on the main feed, although I think Jeannie was first, mentioning that you and Noah each have your own unique style. Sometimes it's not so much what you say, it's enough that you care enough to put yourself out there for us almost daily. It means a lot. I'm happy to do it. Like I said, I've said a couple of times this week in particular, as I've been contemplating the end here, if I won the lotto tomorrow, I would be live like all day. I love doing this. I love the interactions. I love providing the service. It's very meaningful. So thank you, Jeannie. Getting back over into the other comment feed here. Elizabeth saying, folks struggle with computer skills. They are elderly, few are savvy, but not all. And yeah, I mean, that's, I wonder why it didn't go to the other. That's a barrier. I work with a lot of folks who, I'm going to try and copy that link in there again. There we go. I work with a lot of folks who don't necessarily have consistent internet access. And tech would be a problem for them. They may have a smart device, but they're on a limited data plan. There's no, I'm certainly not naive enough to know that I'm not naive enough to think that there's a one-size-fits-all solution, because there's not. We need in-person stuff. I believe we need, that's why I was real careful to say, I don't think we can do better, we can do more. Because, just like things like Navigator, Facebook, and all that stuff, they're great for the people who are able to access it and willing to access it. But that's not the be-all, end-all. There are folks that still don't want to use social media or want to turn their webcams on or anything like that. And we still need to service those people. They still deserve care. So like I said, there's no one-size-fits-all answer here. Why isn't it going through to Facebook? I just also want to take a minute to say a huge thank you to Lisa. COPD Navigator has made me want to be a better RT for my COPD patients, and that is one of the finest professional compliments I could ever ask for. The finest personal compliment I ever get is when somebody comes back and says, I didn't know how bad my breathing had gotten until it got better. And that is those two are really tied up there. Thank you very much. Sincerely, from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. So Lynn, I don't know why. Maybe if I paste it in, let's see if I can get to the actual video. And everybody welcome in Linda McMahon. another fierce advocate for, oops, that is the right page, fierce advocate for the genetic type of COPD called alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency, which usually called the genetic form of COPD. I mean, it's certainly a distinct process in and of itself. So let me see, maybe if I paste it here, it will finally go through. There we go. So Lynn, whoops. Well, there is a link in the, let's see if I can tag Lynn here. You know, we talk about older folks having computer problems. They ain't got nothing on me. You know, tech isn't always the easiest thing to I can't tag Lynn in that, I guess. But Lynn, in the comment thread here, you should be able to see the link to tonight's Zoom conference. If not, just send me a message, and I will make sure that you get a hold of it. So in any event, I mean, you know, tech problems are tech. Yes, Lynn, you'll just what'll happen there is when you put that in your search bar, it'll go to a site and it'll give you a couple of different options. If you can download some software, you can run it right through your web browser. It's very easy to use, well, relatively easy to use compared to other software. John Linnell, who wasn't able to join us today, another COPD advocate from Wisconsin, says it's one of his favorite methods to do the communication. So if you have trouble, like I said, just send me a message either through the Navigator page or me directly. And we'll make sure you get hooked up. But yeah, you'll click on that. Then the way it works is you'll see with Zoom, you'll see where you would normally see like my face. You'll end up seeing the main game screen. And then all you'll have to do is go to a web page, type in a web address and type in an access code. Oh, hey, there's John, just in time to say goodbye. Summoned as from the ether, like a mischievous spirit, perhaps. You'll be able to just type in the web address. You don't have to buy anything. You know, you don't have to download anything other than the Zoom stuff. And then you'll just kind of type in your responses either on your device, whether it's a phone or a tablet or your web browser, whatever it is. Like I said, pretty easy to use. We ran through maybe one practice game when we first got it, but it's really easy to use and should be a good time. We'll see. Elizabeth, seeing how our patients are impacted with our efforts is very empowering. Yes, absolutely it is. It's why I keep doing what I do. It's a great job. So, I know we got like 8 different copies of the web address there. But yeah, there we go. So, that's coming up tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, 2 hours from now. Don't click the link yet. Because nobody's there. Let's see. Almost inevitably when I post it. Oh, nope, nobody's clicked it yet. So, don't click it until 7. Will the link stay here after you're gone? It should, and if it's not, you'll be able to go right to if you go to COPD Navigator, the Facebook page, you'll see the event for it, and the link is also there. So you should be able to, and then like I said, if you're having trouble, if it's getting close to 7, you're having trouble, send me a message, post on the wall of COPD Navigator, do whatever you need to do, and I will get you the link directly. As a matter of fact, let's see. I don't know if I can... Oh, Lynn, you're checking in from YouTube, but yeah, it should be. Let me go. As a matter of fact, let me go over to the YouTube page real quick just to double check, but it should be there. Should be there in the comments. And let's see. It's going to pull up the feed there real quick. Yeah, so it should stay there. If not, what I will do, well, let's see if I can, I will do this. At the risk of bringing in all the riffraff who are clearly stalking my Navigator or my YouTube channel, I have made the link in the public comment, so that should definitely stay there. But yeah, everything should stay there. Like I said, if not, you can even leave a comment on the YouTube channel, and that should pop back up. So, all right, so we'll go ahead and start wrapping some things up here. We'll be live, like I said earlier. We'll be live tonight on Zoom with that fun experiment. If that goes well, maybe that'll be a regular feature. Time permitting, of course. We will be back tomorrow at 4 Eastern Time for Fitness Friday, our Fitness Friday episode of Navigator House Call. Next week is up in the air. Tomorrow is likely, I would say at least 50% likely the last daily show. Might have a little bit more insight tomorrow. More likely won't have more insight until Monday about how often we'll be able to go live. But my goal is to be live as often as possible still, because that's how much I look forward to these. We may also get back, or we will get back a little bit to some of the more structured shows that we used to have where we had a topic of the day and then a lot of question and answer. Those were weekly to bi-weekly, because they're a little bit harder to put together. It's actually, I've done, in 3 months now, 2.5 months, done a lot of the general prep work where it's pretty easy. It takes about 5 minutes to get the stream going, assuming nothing breaks down or mutes or anything like that. But the other graphics and stuff can be a little bit tougher to put together. Also, perhaps of interest, many of you have met my wife, Kelly. We are doing another live show this Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. We are continuing, it'll be episode 2 of our new series, Fight to Flight. Both of us have struggled with a variety of chronic conditions throughout our lives, mostly related to weight. She and I have both struggled with obesity our whole lives, being overweight, all that stuff, all the stuff that goes with it. And we're both trying to kind of get back on track with a lot of that through all of the stress and strife that everybody's been experiencing the last couple of months. And we want to share, she works as a nurse practitioner with diabetes and metabolic stuff, obesity, specializing in obesity. And, a lot of our people have similar issues. There's a stigma attached to being overweight. It's like there's a stigma attached to being a smoker or even an ex-smoker. And there are a lot of barriers for a lot of folks. So we're trying to put our experience together and do some good there. So that will be coming on Sunday, and that's also a thing that gets supported by your sponsorships on Patreon. So it's not just a one-shot deal. We've got a lot of media that she and I both really want to do, and we really want to help a broader population. We want to, what it comes down to, honestly, we want to help as many people as we can. And that means via telehealth. So that's coming on Monday, that's coming on Sunday, 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, Fight to Flight, and we'll get some links up for that too. That YouTube channel is a little bit more cumbersome. Actually, Joe, I have today, that's a good point. My big goal for this week was to increase my step count, and I'm going to see if I can get it up on the screen here. This is now day 2 of over 10,000 steps. Not wearable. I need the fitness app. My goal was my weekly goal, because I'm trying to lose about 20 pounds again. My weekly goal was to walk 10,000 steps each day. Didn't make it Monday, didn't make it Tuesday, but I got 8,000 on Monday, and I got 11,000 or 9,000 Tuesday. Today, I'm going to see if this will work. Wish I could zoom out a little bit more. I wonder if I rotate it a little bit. Does that work? Nope, that app apparently doesn't rotate. But I have 12,000 steps today. So I did get my goal today and yesterday. Had 11,000 yesterday. So we were able to get up early this morning, and it's now light enough and nice enough in the morning that we can walk outside. So I actually had 10,000 steps by about 8 o'clock this morning, which was cool. And then the rest of my day has just been, still kind of sedentary because nature of the beast when still working on building up the patient load again. But yeah. So thank you, Joe. Appreciate it. Congrats, he says. Thank you. All right. So, yeah, we've got Ready Room tonight, game night. We've got Fitness Friday tomorrow. We've got Fight to Flight on Sunday. We'll see how it goes next week. I should at least have, hoping that I should at least be able to have one live show. We'll see how it goes. We'll have harmonicas on Monday night again, 7 p.m. And we'll get links and events and all this stuff up. I should be better, I should say, at putting them on our website. We now have a website, copdnavigator.net. Still working on building content. Hopefully we'll have some more stuff up this weekend. I will make it a point to have all the event links up at copdnavigator.net. And maybe sign up for a mailing list too for reminders and such. So until tonight, or until tomorrow, or until Sunday, or until Monday, I hope that you all continue to take care of yourselves and take care of each other. I hope these shows continue to be of benefit. And I hope that we all see each other again real soon. Breathe lightly, everybody. We'll see you later.